All right, we are back with a Fox News alert and the big news of the moment. President Trump taking a meeting with world leaders this morning at the NATO Summit, taking part in the family photo there. Listen to what he just had to say.
We're with them all the way. I mean, if you take a look at the numbers, we're with them, and they have very big things to announce today. I don't know if you've taken the vote or you're going to take the vote, but I've been asking them to go up to 5% for a number of years, and they're going up to 5%. And that's a big, from 2%. And a lot of people didn't even pay the 2%. So I think it's going to be very big news. NATO is going to become very strong with us, and I appreciate doing it.
Norway's Minister of Finance and former NATO Secretary General Jan Stoltenberg joins us now. And, sir, no one knows the inner workings of NATO better than you. As we await this vote, how much of a monumental achievement was it for President Trump to get other NATO members to even commit to a 5% threshold in the first place?
This is a historic decision and a historic achievement for NATO, for the United States, and for all of us, because when we live in a more dangerous world, when there's a full-fledged war going on in Europe, in Ukraine, and we see more rivalry with China, of course, then we need to invest more in defense, and 5% of GDP is much higher than anyone thought was possible just a few years ago.
Well, a lot has happened in the NATO alliance just this past year, including the inclusion of Finland and Sweden, which you played a significant role in their ascension into NATO. So how do you view the strength of NATO in this moment, in this current form?
I think what we've seen over the last years demonstrates that President Putin made a big strategic mistake by invading Ukraine because he wanted less NATO. He has gotten the exact opposite. More NATO forces on the eastern part of the alliance. Finland and Sweden, new members of the alliance. With Finland in NATO, NATO has doubled its border with Russia. And then on top of that, the decision now at the NATO Summit on spending 5% of GDP on defense, meaning also that European allies are stepping up significantly. And I'm also proud of being the Minister of Finance in Norway now, that one of the first decisions I was part of was to actually triple the military support to Ukraine from Norway.
So take that a step further. What should Vladimir Putin take away from this NATO summit?
The NATO allies are prepared to continue to support Ukraine. We all want this war to end, but we also know that the quickest way of ending a war is to lose a war. But that will not bring peace, that will bring occupation. So the only way to end this war in a way that Ukraine prevails as a sovereign independent nation is to provide military support to Ukraine, so to convince President Putin that he will not win on the battlefield.
How do you view the ceasefire between Israel and Iran right now and President Trump's decision to get involved militarily with that strike on Saturday?
Well, I think we should all now focus on the ceasefire, and President Trump played a crucial role in getting that ceasefire in place. Now the challenge is to ensure that the ceasefire is respected. No one wants an open-ended war in the Middle East, and we need to resume diplomatic efforts to ensure that Iran never gets nuclear weapons. And I think it's also important to see the link between Iran and the war in Ukraine, because Iran has been one of the main providers of military support, drones to Ukraine, supported by North Korea, but also, of course, China being the main enabler of Russia's war efforts in Ukraine, working together with other authoritarian regimes like Iran.
Beyond the 5%, what did NATO members learn over the last 24 hours about Donald Trump as he navigated that ceasefire? As Carly pointed out, from the plane to the NATO summit, what's their takeaway? The individuals in the room with Donald Trump right now, what are they thinking about our president?
I think they think that he has very strong messages on these issues, and of course, being president in the most important NATO allies, the United States, it really matters what he says and does, and therefore it's also important that they meet, that they sit around the same table. There has always been differences between NATO allies, but the good thing with NATO is that despite those differences, we have been able to agree around the core task to protect and defend each other. This is good for Europe, but it's also good for the United States. The United States is 25% of the global world economy. Together with NATO allies, we are 50% of the world economy and 50% of the world's military might. So it's also good for the United States to have friends and allies as it has in NATO.
So President Trump is going to be meeting with Vladimir Zelensky later today. He confirmed that during his comments to the media. And yesterday, 19 people were killed in Russian attacks on Ukraine, just yesterday alone. Do you think Vladimir Putin will ever agree to a ceasefire? And if so, what is it going to take?
First, I think it's good that President Zelensky is attending the NATO Summit, and I think it's important and good that President Zelensky and President Trump will meet. It's not for me to speak on behalf of President Zelensky, but they have made it clear that as part of effort towards a lasting peace, they are, of course, also ready to have a ceasefire. President Zelensky actually proposed a ceasefire. I think the main challenge is that Putin, he believes that he can win on the battlefield, so he continues the war, and he tries to not be, what should I say, committed to a political process. What we do know is that what happens around the negotiating table is closely linked to what happens on the battlefield. So the stronger Ukraine is on the battlefield, the more likely it will be that it's possible to achieve a result on the negotiating table, including a ceasefire, that ensures that Ukraine will prevail as a sovereign independent nation. And this is in the security interest of the United States and all NATO allies, because if President Putin wins in Ukraine, it will send a message to Beijing, to other authoritarian powers, that when they use force, they get what they want. And that will make it more dangerous in Asia, around Taiwan. So it's about our security to support Ukraine.
Jan Stoltenberg, wonderful to have you here this morning on this monument. This morning. You used to be in that room where it happened, and now you're giving us insight as it happens once again. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're grateful to have you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.